Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lord SeanConnery from Nostradamus, the Nostradamus of oil. And maybe, yes, not really. It is Monday, September 29th. This is a very interesting week because we have the end of the month, which is very fun, very interesting for oil, and then the beginning of the month. And one of my mentors did mention that during the end of the month, there's a lot of sell side action that happens. And then at the beginning of the month, do not fade a trend if you get one. Anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the charts. All right, let's go ahead and zoom on out here. So just some things to note about Friday's action. Friday's action, we actually broke above this the 65 region in the overnight. Let me just turn down my news feed. There we go. And during Friday's action, broke above that, held a pullback, and then we just rocketed higher. What was interesting is that we printed singles and defects up on the way, and it looked very feverish. But then it actually pulled back, and even though the RTH session closed above the IB high and these day generated prices, the full session actually closed below the open, which was really shitty. And I like to look at the full session more than the RTH session because, oil is a global product, and it's not just limited to the fancy schmancy RTH hours where most of the volume comes in. That alone really set the tone for what some possibilities were. And as my friend Mohammed and I discussed in a previous video for the weekly, for kind of like a weekly recap, we were expecting, I was expecting either oil to pull back and go higher, or with this Sunday open, we actually had a gap, which is very interesting. The possibility was for oil to attempt to go higher, find sellers, and get smacked down. I stayed up very late last night trying to hunt for a short, and I was able to get 65.30, risk 3 ticks above this high at 65.37, got some risk off, and then I got snaked to the tick. The shenanigans in the European session quickly took the stop out, and if I was awake, I would have realized that the look above that 65.37 was pretty paltry. After that, oil just started to take a big fat dump. So we opened in the RTH with a gap down. The previous low of the day was around the 65.21. We opened right about 64.51, I believe. And these were the Quant Levels. About 7:45 before the open, we had a struggle here. There was a lot of volume that was traded at the overnight VPOC, and there was a really nice, since we're in a gap down, we either want to see if we can be responsive and actually start to move up to attempt to fill the gap, but this fucker was just straight, like, let's go ahead and just start the day off, heading down. So that initial movement away from the gap told me shorts are definitely on the table. Do not buy the fucking dip, or else you're going to get your dick cut off. I was able to layer in a short. The high at that moment was the open at 51. I was able to offer 44, risk 54, 3 ticks above that open, got filled, and then this one went to Pound Town. Tagged inflection 1, held below the RTH VWAP the whole day, held below the RTH mid, didn't even visit them. This was pretty impressive action. Tagged inflection 2. Inflection 2 is the most efficient price as per Infinitus Capital. And usually you see a reaction to where you might be able to take it to back to inflection 1 or maybe even back to the over-under. That was not the case. There was a lot of heavy buy-side delta, but it was going nowhere. We'll make a low at 61, get up to 85, make a new low by a tick at 60 to break the IB low, and it ekes out this lower high, and then it just kept dropping. It's pretty brutal day for buyers. And even though the delta, I'll go ahead and bring this up really quick. This was the delta chart for the session. Since the open, the smalls were buying like it was going out of style, and the very large, which I set as 10 contracts or higher, were on the sell side. Um, so that's a very interesting divergence between small and large, very large participants. And one thing to note is when you see very large participate in that manner, do not get in front of them. That is one thing. Smalls rarely take the lead on the win. It's very large that are, they're like giants in the sandbox, I guess you could say. Okay, so that was enough about oil. Uh, where oil is, I also have this 30-minute. This is a 30-minute brackets, so you can kind of see how oil auctioned. Let's see where we are. Here is basically the open, straight down, just straight down. A lot of participation at certain prices. This was the participation at the lows. Tons of two-way action, but a lot of offers being taken, but would get no resolve. And if you're a buyer down here, an aggressive buyer, and this is not making any ground, what are you going to do? You're going to drop your fucking position. And that's exactly what happened. So we actually came in and did some pretty crazy stuff. This was the close. We had closing positions, and this thing kind of ran up a little bit, but still we managed to preserve some this really good sell tail in the RTH. We didn't have any singles here. This still held single prints up to about, let's see, that's 63.54, and that's pretty much it. So oil closed just about at its lows, shifted value and the VPOC pretty far down compared to Friday. The expectations for tomorrow is that it's probably going to continue lower, especially with it being the end of the month, unless some news comes on out. ES was very interesting. Different story here. These I didn't put any of the overnight levels. I just left the RTH levels. On Sunday's open, we had this grind, just incessant grinding, and a grind like this in such a linear fashion. One of the guys over at Convergent FT71 mentioned that is a buy program. So you have you have programs that either buy or sell to auction markets to find out where the sellers are lurking. So in this case, buy programs going, trying to find sellers, tiptoe, 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 get a decent response here. And then in the pre-market, this is a one tick lower high. So that kind of sets the buyers with a little clinch butthole, one ass cheek off the seat, ready to run. Open came on in. We had some movement between inflection one and the over-under. There was a really good price participation in the 29s at the over-under, which was technically the overnight VPOC, around 29.75, I believe, or 30. This came in, retested it with a lower high, and then just started to go to town. This is one of the classic trades from Infinitus Capital. The taking a position from the over-under, targeting inflection one and inflection two. This actually did pretty good. This was a normal variation day where you had the IBs well formed, and then one of them broke. And in this case, we also nailed inflection two, not to the tick, a few ticks shy, before closing, I believe, under, like below the IB, below the open, and then we shifted value in this case. That was ES. Like we could go ahead and take a look at it on the 30-minute. So when the market opened, this is the A period right here. B period was right here. This was the volume imprint right here, this 1285 by 1203. This is pretty significant. And when that happened, the market made like a relative new low with respect to the previous low. After that, I didn't keep my eyes on this because I was too involved just monitoring oil. I missed a weekly. I got stopped out of my weekly, but I was able to go ahead and get back in, just not at the great price of 65.30. But this was really nice. This came to do a retest. There's very scant volume at the top of this bracket, kind of lets you know that there's a lack of interest on the buy side. This came and retested. It had a shitload of volume that was right below, a lot of two-way action here. Then from there, it just started to auction lower, and that's what kind of went on here. There's no interesting single prints or anything left over. This really kind of auctioned well to clear up some stuff. That is pretty much it for both those products, ES and CL. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video today. I guess we'll kind of go ahead and see what happens tomorrow. Again, with the end of the month, it's going to be a lot of positioning by funds, also commercials, and then we'll see where oil goes for the beginning of the week. And the beginning of the week, October 1st, is also Wednesday, which is the EIA. So there's kind of like a super deluxe special right there. Anyways, this is Lord Sean Connery signing off. Take care.